The fluorescent lights of Lincoln High's cafeteria cast their usual harsh glow over the sea of chattering students. It was just another Tuesday lunch period, with the familiar symphony of clattering trays, scraping chairs, and teenage conversations filling the air. Emma Rodriguez sat at her usual table near the corner, picking at her sandwich while trying to blend into the background, a skill she had perfected over the past 6 months. 6 months ago, everything had changed. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt: alopecia areata, an autoimmune condition that caused complete hair loss. At 17, losing her long, dark curls felt like losing a part of her identity. The treatments, the doctor visits, and worst of all, the stares and whispers from classmates had transformed the confident girl who once performed in school plays into someone who preferred shadows to spotlights. Emma had tried everything: wigs, scarves, hats when the dress code allowed. But today, her favorite wig felt uncomfortable and hot. Against her better judgment, she had removed it during chemistry class and stuffed it into her backpack, planning to put it back on before lunch. However, the bell had rung earlier than expected, and she found herself swept into the cafeteria crowd before she could retrieve it. Now, sitting there with her bald head exposed under the unforgiving lights, Emma felt every pair of eyes in the room. Some students stared openly, others whispered behind their hands, and a few pointed not so subtly in her direction. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she pulled her navy cardigan tighter around herself, wishing she could disappear entirely. "Hey, look at the bald girl," she heard someone snicker from a nearby table. Did she forget her wig at home? Emma's hands trembled as she reached for her backpack, desperate to find her wig and escape to the bathroom. But in her nervousness, she knocked over her water bottle, sending it clattering to the floor with a loud crash that seemed to echo through the entire cafeteria. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The silence was deafening. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she bent down to retrieve the bottle, her face burning with shame. This was it, her worst nightmare realized. She would have to change schools, maybe even move to another town. The humiliation was unbearable. But then, something unexpected happened. Frank Martinez, the school's head janitor, had been mopping near the serving area when he noticed the commotion. A gentle man in his 50s with kind eyes and calloused hands, Frank had worked at Lincoln High for over 15 years. He had seen countless teenage dramas unfold in these halls, but something about this moment struck him differently. He saw the pain in Emma's eyes, the cruel stares of her classmates, and felt his heart break a little. Without hesitation, Frank set down his mop and walked across the cafeteria. As he approached Emma's table, he did something that would be remembered long after graduation day. With quiet dignity, Frank removed his navy blue work cap, the one he wore every day, the one that had become as much a part of him as his warm smile and encouraging words. Standing directly in front of Emma, Frank looked her in the eyes and spoke in a voice loud enough for the entire cafeteria to hear. "Young lady, you have the most beautiful, brave face I've ever seen. Anyone who can't see that needs to check their vision." Then, in a gesture that left the entire room speechless, Frank placed his hand over his heart and tipped his cap to Emma in a show of respect and solidarity. "We bald folks," he said with a gentle smile, running his hand over his own thinning hair, "we stick together. And you, Miss Emma, wear it better than any of us ever could." The effect was immediate and profound. One by one, students began to stand. Sarah Chen, the student council president, was the first to applaud. Then Marcus Williams, the football team captain, joined in. Soon, the entire cafeteria erupted in applause, not the mocking kind that Emma had feared, but genuine, heartfelt appreciation for both her courage and Frank's kindness. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Martinez," Sarah called out, her voice carrying over the applause. "Emma is beautiful just as she is." "The bravest person in this school," added Marcus, his usual tough guy demeanor replaced by sincere admiration. Emma looked around in wonder as her classmates smiled at her, really smiled, not the pitying looks she had grown accustomed to, but genuine warmth and acceptance. For the first time in months, she felt seen for who she truly was, not defined by what she had lost. Frank gently placed his cap back on his head and knelt down beside Emma's chair. "You know," he said quietly, "my daughter went through something similar when she was your age. Different condition, same struggle. But she learned something important, and I hope you will too. Real beauty, real strength, it comes from in here." He tapped his chest. "Not from what's up here," he gestured to his head. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of gratitude, not shame. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been hiding for so long, I forgot what it felt like to just be myself." "Well," Frank said, standing up and adjusting his cap with a grin, "no more hiding. This school is lucky to have you, exactly as you are." As Frank returned to his mop and the cafeteria slowly returned to its normal buzz of conversation, Emma noticed something remarkable happening. Students she barely knew were approaching her table, introducing themselves, asking if they could sit with her. The lunch period that had started as her worst nightmare was transforming into something beautiful. In the weeks that followed, Emma found herself at the center of a movement she never expected. Inspired by Frank's simple act of kindness and her own newfound confidence, students began organizing awareness events about autoimmune conditions and differences. Emma became not just a face in the crowd, but a voice for acceptance and understanding. Frank continued his daily routines, mopping floors and maintaining the school, but now he carried himself with the knowledge that a single moment of compassion had changed a young person's life. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest waves. Years later, when Emma graduated as valedictorian and went on to become a pediatric nurse specializing in helping children with medical conditions affecting their appearance, she would always remember that Tuesday in the cafeteria. She would remember that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up, speak out, and show the world that kindness is the most powerful force we possess. And Frank Martinez? He kept that same Navy cap until the day he retired, telling anyone who would listen about the day he learned that respect and dignity, freely given, can transform not just one life, but an entire community. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of human kindness.